Ferdinand Marcos ruled the Philippines for 2 decades. His regime rigged elections, tortured and killed political opponents, and plundered up to $10 billion of public money. Corruption immortalized by wife Imelda's extravagant shoe collection.
The abuses that occurred under the Ferdinand Marcos regime. Tell us about Ferdinand Jr.
So Ferdinand Jr. might seem like he's come out of nowhere, but in fact this rise by the Marcos family has been in train for 30 years, really since they left the Philippines. They left in '86 after they were deposed, and they came back in 1991. So it's been 3 decades since then that they've been slowly building back their base in the Philippines, expanding it, and tapping into a new generation of followers who are young enough to not remember or don't know at all about what really happened under Marcos Sr. So Ferdinand Marcos has held a number of political positions in the lead up to this election. He started out with local positions in the family's northern stronghold, vice governor, governor. He became a congressman. He became a senator. So this is he's leveled up. He's now running for the presidency, and he has a commanding lead in the polls. 56% of Filipinos are behind him. They also have grown their base, and this is where social media comes in. They've been masterful at actually changing their reputation, rebranding slowly. Marcos Jr. now seems like a shiny, nice guy political figure, and that's become very appealing to his supporters. So on social media, they look back at the Marcos Sr. regime with fondness. They remember it as a golden time in the Philippines because there was some...
I address this message to global community for you to understand that BBM won this election not because of historical revisionism, as what anti-Marcos were trying to convince the global community of their lies and propaganda. First of all, Filipinos are educated people and smarter than before. We, the 31.6 million Filipinos, are not stupid to believe in historical revisionism. Rather, we believe in correcting history. 36 years ago is totally different from today. Now, we're living in the 20th century. Filipinos are smarter voter than before. Now, we have internet and social media and advanced technology. What is hidden in the past are now concealed. In short, a lot of yellow media and Liberal Party narratives about the evil and Marcos regime were found untrue and purely propaganda. Majority of Filipinos didn't believe that BBM won via landslide just because of historical revisionism. But we do believe that there's a big awakening from 35 years of slumber. Now the Filipinos have realized that all the lies and brainwashing about the evil of Marcos and his administrations are purely black propaganda. In behalf of 31.6 million Filipinos who voted for BBM, we strongly believe and convinced that BBM is the most qualified presidential candidate. BBM became a vice governor of Ilocos Norte in 1980 until 1983. He also became a governor of Ilocos Norte. And aside from that, he became a congressman of Ilocos Norte 2nd District in the year 1992 up to 1995. And he was also elected as Senator of the Republic of the Philippines. In the year 2016, he was the duly elected Vice President of the Philippines, but he was clearly cheated. BBM is the smartest among the presidential candidates. He can talk freely about any issues. He went to Oxford University and got special diploma. He also studied in Wharton University undergraduate because of the call of duty that he cannot resist. When we talk about character, BBM is the perfect role model of all politicians. He broke the normal way of campaigning by his message of unifying leadership. His take on what he believes that the Filipinos will only succeed if we will unite, hold hands together, put our talents and efforts together. Because united we stand, divided we fall. Also, Bongbong Marcos does not indulge in negative campaigning as what his opponents did in their campaign. Philippines last May 9, 2022 election. Bongbong Marcos stands out above the rest of presidential candidates who did nothing but bad-mouthing, mudslinging, and cursing him every day. The Filipinos are tired of this trapo, traditional politicians who failed to lay down their platforms in series of debates because they focus on criticizing the frontrunner, Bongbong Marcos. Last year, October 2021, after BBM filed his candidacy, a lot of anti-Marcos came into open and filed disqualification cases and cancellation of COC of BBM. They rallied in front of COMELEC shouting that BBM should be disqualified from running. A lot of old issues came up like martial law, ill-gotten wealth, fake diploma, and even somebody said that BBM is fake because the real BBM was already dead a long time ago. Issues of tax evasion, estate tax, and a lot more. Full force, all anti-Marcos put all their efforts together to destroy the candidacy of BBM and to tarnish his reputation so that the people will not vote for him. But in spite of these issues and lies and black propaganda, BBM remained the front runner in all legitimate survey organizations like Okta Research, Pulse Asia, Publicus, SWS, RMN, and so on. BBM's rating remained high despite of propaganda and criticism. He remained the front runner with very high rating of 50, 55, 56, sometimes even higher as 60%. Why has this happened? Let me put it this way. After EDSA revolution, when Marcos was ousted, we Filipinos have seen the worst things that happened in our country. After Marcos, the Philippines imports rice, fish, vegetables, and a lot more. After EDSA, the prices of our consumption of electricity, water, and other basic needs increased even more. Disobedience, drugs, criminalities, poverties all over the countries are very rampant and increasing. After EDSA, the Philippines was mismanaged by yellow presidents. In short, Filipinos now realize that Marcos era is better than 30 years of yellow administration. I call them yellow because yellow represents Cory Aquino, Fidel Ramos, Noynoy Aquino, and other Liberal Party politicians who ruled the Philippines and mismanaged the Philippines for 30 years. During Marcos' time, the Philippines is self-sufficient when it comes to rice, vegetables, fish, and other basic goods. With President Marcos Pasagana 99, the Philippines was able to produce miracle rice, and we even export rice to other neighboring Asian countries. In short, in Marcos' time, we don't import, but we are the ones who supply rice to neighboring countries like Vietnam. But now, what happened? We just depend on importation because the yellow administration mismanaged our agriculture. During Marcos' time, we also have Biyayang Dagat, where there's a bountiful production of fishes, seafoods. But now, we import even galunggong. Do you know what galunggong is? Galunggong is poor man's fish. But now, even poor people cannot afford to buy galunggong. What happened to the Philippines? What happened to us? You know, I can tell you everything about the frustration, disappointment of the Filipinos to these yellow presidents who promised a lot, but not even one promise was fulfilled. That's the reason why the Filipinos are clamoring for another Marcos in Malacanang. Because despite of the lies and black propaganda about President Marcos, but the Filipinos experience bountiful life in Marcos era, where everything is cheap and very affordable. That's why majority of Filipinos voted for BBM. Don't blame disinformation, don't blame historical revisionism, because it's the Filipino who longs for another Marcos to govern our beloved country, which is the Philippines. We cannot afford to have another yellow president in the person of Leni Robredo. The Filipinos hates the yellow or kakampink politicians. Give us liberty to vote another Marcos, or let us die in our motherland. Anti-Marcos talk a lot about martial law atrocities, but majority of the Filipinos did not experience any torture, imprisonment, or harassment. Those who experienced torture, imprisonment, harassment were the terrorists who wants to overthrow the government. Now, they're still here fighting the government for over 53 years. Many anti-Marcos said that he was a dictator, but majority of the Filipinos did not believe in that narratives. Why? Because a dictator don't undergo with electoral processes. For us, Marcos did not terrorize the Philippines, but he fought the rebel communists in our country to maintain democracy. In 1970s, the Philippines has a serious problem with insurgency. We have the NPA, the armed group of Communist Party of the Philippines, led by Joma Sison. We have the Muslim uprising in Mindanao, the MNLF, led by Nur Miswari. And during that time, there's also an international threat of communism. As we can see in our neighboring countries like Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, they were already invaded by communists. Marcos needed to do a drastic decision by declaring martial law after consulting the Congress, Senate, and the judiciary. Although declaring martial law is a very unpopular decision, but he took all the risks just to save the country from communism. Marcos was successful in fighting communism in our country. And the big evidence was there's no Filipino boat people. In fact, the Philippines became a fortress for Vietnamese boat people. Those who fled from Vietnam, they came here in the Philippines because they knew that Philippines is free from communism. They knew that Philippines is a democratic country. So I appeal to the international community, please don't easily believe with the news that anti-Marcos are spreading, not just here in our country, but all over the world. Instead of judging easily the Marcos family, I bid you to make a thorough research or even make a face-to-face interview to reliable sources. Because the narrative that you're hearing about and you're getting is only the narratives of anti-Marcos or those NPA rebels who tried to overthrow the government in the times of Marcos. Those are the left-leaning people who can't accept the reality that Marcos hindered their plan to overthrow the government and make the country a communist country. Marcos hindered them from doing so. I bid you to have a thorough research and talk to law-abiding citizens during martial law era. If you do that, your view about Marcos and martial law will change positively. About the ill-gotten wealth, racketeering, and plunder cases of President Marcos, I could say that we Filipinos are tired of hearing these issues over and over again. Aquino administration filed 986 cases, almost 1K, to President Marcos and Imelda Marcos. But unfortunately, not even one prospers. Until now, nobody went to jail, not even Imelda Marcos. All cases were acquitted and dismissed for lack of evidence. The only case remaining is the civil case of Imelda Marcos, where the Sandigang Bayan convict Imelda of 7 counts of graft. But it's not yet final and executory because Imelda went to Supreme Court and appealed the case. So until now, it's still pending. We Filipinos believe and hoping that this 7 counts of graft case of Imelda Marcos will be dismissed sooner or later because we don't believe that the former First Lady was involved in graft and corruption. After EDSA, when Cory Aquino took over by revolutionary government, Cory issued an executive order number 1 saying that Marcos amassed $1 million. After 2 months, the Guinness World Record published on their website the statement written in Cory's executive order number 1. They made it as their reference and published on their website. I quote, "The government of the Philippines announced on 23rd April 1986 that it had succeeded in identifying $860.8 million salted away by the former President Ferdinand Edrelin Marcos, 1917 to 1989, and his wife Imelda." Guinness World Record said in its website. See? So without due process, Cory's government declared that Marcos got ill-gotten wealth. This is clearly injustice. In our Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, it was stated that a person accused of any crime shall presume innocent until proven guilty. But in Marcos' case, the Cory Aquino government declared already that Marcos amassed wealth, that Marcos is a thief, that Marcos got that wealth in national treasury. So, or without court hearing and final verdict from the court. So this is clearly injustice. There's injustice. This is a very long story to tell. To cut the story short, majority of Filipinos found that most issues that they throw to President Marcos were politically motivated. That's the reason why Cory Aquino did not allow Marcos to defend himself here in Philippine court, because Cory Aquino knew 100% that Marcos is not guilty. Cory Aquino was afraid to face Marcos in the court because she exactly knew that all her accusations about Marcos were all propaganda. So she did not allow Marcos to go home. And besides, Cory cannot take the shame, because if Marcos will be acquitted from all the cases, then the people will put all the blame on her. Besides, she already destroyed Marcos' reputation. Now what happened? The Aquinos reaped their bad karma. Cory Aquino got sick and died of cancer. Noynoy Aquino suffered from illness and also died. And now Chris Aquino, the youngest daughter of Cory Aquino, is also sick and suffering a lot from autoimmune and other acute illness. The Aquinos reaped their bad karma because of what they did to Marcos' family. But look at the family of the late President Marcos. All of them are still alive and united. They're happy, and every one of them has a good career. Some of them are in politics. And we cannot deny that the Filipino love the Marcos family very much. See? That's what the First Lady Imelda Marcos once said, that there's a divine justice. And President Marcos also once said that history will judge him rightfully. So I tell you, BBM's presidency was ordained and designed by God. God put an end to injustice that Marcos family is experiencing for more than 35 years.